There's no reason for one guy to have the power de Blasio's got.
Yep.
It's just too many people.
Power
18 million people.
Yeah. Well, no, the issue is he doesn't have the power. People just give it to him.
He's just given ridiculous edicts.
He's not given the power to do this. The cops just obey him.
Because they don't know what else to do.
Well,
They need their money.
No, it's because the officers that obey the unconstitutional orders of de Blasio are obsessed with suckling his teats. So they love...
And they hate each other at the same time.
No. The officers that follow the unconstitutional edicts, like when de Blasio painted Black Lives Matter illegally in the street, those cops that went down to guard it are just in love with de Blasio.
They're just doing it for the money.
And they love licking his feet.
No. Should have arrested de Blasio for vandalism right then and there.
Well, he stole taxpayer money to do it. Yeah. And then 27 cops came out and they
were like...
During
a pandemic.
During a pandemic.
Everyone has to wear a mask and shut their business.
And then 27 NYPD cops were like, the smart thing for me to do is to obey this man.
Right.
Instead of saying, I'm not going to guard that. Are you nuts?
No. It's like we bent over back for the
police. You know why? Yep. So
this is how they...
The important point you brought up is that the cops who are screwing with this bar, there was NYPD there, but now de Blasio's like, I'm going to bring in the sheriffs because the NYPD doesn't want to do it. And I am not saying all cops. I'm saying clearly there are cops in big cities run by Democrats who don't care. And you know why? It's really obvious. Everybody lost their jobs.
Honestly, the NYPD should arrest the sheriffs for violating the Constitution.
But listen.
Just do it.
You have cops in New York, and they're going around seeing everyone destitute, like suffering and losing their money, and they're like, I have a job, at least I'm safe.
Yeah.
And then de Blasio is basically like, I want you to oppress people and destroy their lives. And the cop goes, better them than me. Mm-hmm. And so they just give in.
Now put on this white armor. Now bow to the emperor.
It's like how a lot of, I don't want to say the N-word, not the bad N-word, but the German N-word.
German N-word?
Yes.
National Socialist.
Yes.
National Socialist.
Stormtrooper. That's the word I was going to say.
Flag your video because they do that on mine. But
I think I already said Nazi on the show.
Yeah,
okay,
you can say Nazi.
As
long as you don't call people
German N-word.
Nazis, you can talk about it.
But I mean, there was a lot of Nazis that were just doing it just because they don't want to be on the other end.
I read that there were Jewish Nazis, like Jewish guards who are like, if they find out, so I'll just go along with it because they were scared.
Yeah.
Dang.
Dude.
And you know what? People have been telling me that because I made a post on my personal Facebook because I talked to my, just my Staten Island friends, and I would say, like, dear law enforcement, we bent over back for you. Please do not enforce these orders. And some people are like, oh, they're just following orders. It's not their fault.
That's even worse.
That's even worse. I'm like, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Yep. We're the ones paying them. We're the ones that defended them.
You know what I want to see?
De Blasio and Cuomo only have the power that they are given by, I guess,
by
us
the police.
And then
No,
the police.
by the police. Michael Malice said this on the show, that all of these illegal acts, all of these unconstitutional laws are letters to Santa without the men and women in uniform willing to enforce against the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know what I'd love to see? NYPD walking up to these sheriffs at that bar, Max's or whatever, and just taking the three NYPD guys, grab the sheriff, and hands behind your back, you're under arrest.
That's what needs to happen.
You don't live here. We live here. These cops live in Staten Island.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why would they let them come to their home? I'll tell you this, man. Could you imagine these NYPD cops who are either sitting back and doing nothing or enforcing this? Imagine if that was the caliber of young man we had during World War II. They'd be like, land on the beaches of Normandy and be like, look, man, I'm just going to side with the people who are here because they're the ones in power. I'm not going to fight to free people.
What
we need people to stand up and say, I live here. Get the out of my home.
What we need to do is publicly, I guess privately, fund the good officers.
Yeah.
Because if they're worried about losing their job.
No, that's illegal.
Like crowdfunding?
But yeah, if they're worried about losing their job and getting their pay cut, it's like, hey, let's all build up this fund. If you're worried about that, if you lose your pension, if you lose this, let's take it out of this fund. Like you're good, you're secure.
Creating a new police department.
We're creating
like a charity fund. We could do a global charity fund.
Creating our own government.
Here's what I'm advocating for. Here's what I'm saying. The police should arrest criminals.
Yep.
Does that sound crazy?
Well, if it's a bad law, you don't want them arresting people that are defying bad laws.
I didn't say people defying bad. I said criminals.
Crime doesn't make you bad. Like if it's a bad law, you want to become a criminal to fight against the bad law.
You're misunderstanding. I didn't say cops should arrest people who break the law. I said cops should arrest criminals.
Well, if you say everyone has to go out and punch people, and I say I'm not going to do it, then I become a criminal in that.
You're
world.
reading too much into it for no reason.
I'm saying that law and
what
chaos.
I'm saying is when the sheriff shows up and illegally detains someone, that's called kidnapping, and they have no constitutional authority or statutory authority to do it just because de Blasio said so. It is then incumbent upon NYPD to say you are under arrest for kidnapping.
For some crime, yeah.
That's a crime.
I think they should uphold that kind of crime.
That's literal crime.
But it's
the
like
law
moral.
says they can't do it, and they're doing it anyway. They need to be arrested.
But if you make a law that says that you can't do
Bro,
something
that's
you need to
nothing
do, then
with
you
what
have
we're
to become
talking
a criminal.
We're not talking about made-up
You
laws.
just said police
We're
should
not
go
talking-
arrest criminals.
We're not talking about some new law that was just made because de Blasio didn't pass any laws.
I'm just saying crime isn't the
That has nothing to
benchmark
do
of
with what
whether
I'm
or
talking
not
about.
you should be destroyed.
I get what both of you guys are saying, because you're saying that criminality is based on the laws that were made, right?
Yes.
You know, so like being a criminal is defined by the law. But I get what you're saying at the same exact time, where de Blasio and these sheriffs are also breaking the law.
The police should go and arrest criminals.
Yeah,
And I agree
I mean,
with-
you're both right at the same time.
Well, they should arrest those criminals.
They should arrest criminals.
For that, not all criminals.
What? Why not?
Because some laws are bad, and those people shouldn't be criminals.
No,
How about this
they should be.
constitutional law?
I mean, I don't think
Or
nonviolent
whatever,
drug offenders should be arrested personally. Not marijuana. I mean, just because you say marijuana is illegal doesn't mean that you should go arrest them all. It's a bad law. It shouldn't have been made.
It is a bad law. They should be arrested. They should sue, and the law should be
But
overturned.
it destroys people's lives to get arrested. It wastes their time.
Yeah.
It puts a mark on their...
Having an argument about what you think is morally correct is not the point. The point is the sheriffs are coming in and breaking the law.
I think
There's
it's
statutory law being broken by these sheriffs and by some NYPD, and they're spineless, pathetic, and terrified, whiny baby cops who won't do anything about
That
it.
I agree. But it's dangerous to say cops should arrest anyone that's breaking the law. That's
Cops should arrest people who
because
break the
some
law.
laws are not right. So we
And
got to be
that's
careful
what
about
courts
encouraging.
are for.
Yeah, but you don't want to go disrupt everybody.
And then you go to a Democrat court and they lock you up for life.
Bro, you can't argue that some cops have the discretion not to arrest people breaking the law, because then you're going to have a cop who helps and protects his friends. The law has to be upheld. We're a nation of laws. If laws are not enforced, then what do
I'm
we
getting
have?
this because I told him it was lawful good. Okay, you're neutral good. It's a Dungeons and Dragons thing.
Think about all the Democrats who are like, we should decriminalize border crossings. They shouldn't arrest these people. They're broke. No, they did. They literally committed a crime. And just because you don't agree doesn't mean I have to live by your rules. If we vote for people and laws are passed, we deal with ramifications of that. If eventually we find out the laws are bad, we change those. Marijuana is now slowly being legalized as people start to realize. And yes, Trump should pardon nonviolent drug offenders, those who are literally nonviolent, not anybody who pleaded down. The point is, in New York City, when an NYPD cop or a sheriff breaks the law, they need to be
Or they
arrested.
fail to uphold their constitutional oath.
No, that you get fired for. That's not a crime.
I mean, who's going to fire them? The mayor's not going to fire them.
Well, and who's going to arrest the cops committing crimes?
Should be the good cops.
I don't care who you are. If
The
you commit a
FBI.
crime, you get arrested. Okay, and that includes activists who are protesting peacefully. And I say it all the time. Nonviolent civil disobedience is the best, most effective way to get change. It works. We've seen it work. It worked with civil rights, and riots sour people to your cause. But you get arrested, and you deal with the results of challenging the system. There is a cost to challenging the system.
So should the FBI be the ones that are arresting cops that are violating the Constitution?
The FBI doesn't do that. The FBI handles federal.
I saw
crimes.
a video online of a cop arresting another cop.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
that.
it
Like
happens.
right then and there. Like I think maybe the cop was doing a little too much, like hitting the guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just saw the
Yep.
quick clip.
They were
and
on-
then
they were both-
immediately
But
took
listen,
him and they arrested the
Were
cop.
they both on duty?
Yeah, they were both on duty cops, and I think they might have been working the same exact thing.
Let me put it this way. If I'm in New York and some guy walks up to me and grabs me and throws me to the ground and pins my arm behind my back for no reason, that's assault and battery.
Yep.
So a cop should come and arrest that person. I don't care what they're wearing. I don't care if they're wearing a badge. Now, the issue with a cop arresting you is different because we as a community bestow authority upon people under the ideal that they're going to be stopping criminals. Now, a lot of police forces have citations and fines and quota systems, and that's all bunk BS. For sure, we can argue that. But if I am doing everything legally and I'm running my business and some random guy comes in and blocks the door and won't let anybody in, or takes my customers and like detains them, kidnaps them, takes them in their car, you got to arrest that person. Could you imagine if someone went to your business and then just like grabbed the clerk and threw him in a car and drove off? You'd be like, whoa. Under no statutory or constitutional authority did that person do that. I don't care if they're wearing a badge.
Here's another takeaway from everything going on right now. There's no constitutional enforcement from the federal government to the states.
Trump can invoke the Insurrection Act because of this.
Now, he should have done this 6 months ago.
Specifically, in the Insurrection Act, it says if people's constitutional rights are being deprived, he can send in the military to protect their rights.
I think he should. I mean, he's not running for re-election anymore.
I was hoping that
technically
Trump was going to win and then immediately do the Insurrection Act and arrest Cuomo, arrest de Blasio.
He doesn't even need to arrest him. He could send in the military to New York and reinstate people's lives.
Yeah, that's what needs that. He should just do that right now. Just
political willpower.
Yeah.
Trump could do it.
Yeah. That's what America needs right now.
You know, it's funny because people are calling for Trump to invoke martial law. And you've got like his most ardent supporters. And the left is saying, he can't do that or whatever. We're already under martial law. It's not martial law means military law, so not literally, but we are under the Democrats there's constitutional authority and there's statutory law. Statutory law are things that are passed by a legislative body. Constitutional authority is based on what the constitution of your state or the federal government gives you. Under neither of these, Cuomo, Wolf, Newsom, Whitmer have done things they're not allowed to do. And the Supreme Court has said of the United States, you can't do that. So you know what they do? Okay, this executive order has been destroyed by the Supreme Court. I'll issue the exact same one now.
Literally the exact same?
Like they'll change some words or use some alternate arguments to do the exact same thing.
That sounds felonious.
It sounds dictatorial, despotic, psychotic, and in violation of law. And Trump could invoke the Insurrection Act because they keep doing it.
The one thing I learned from all of this, there's a reason why we have the Constitution, and there's a reason why the Founding Fathers put the number 2 in there. I don't like to say it. I don't like to think it. I don't want it to happen.
But you don't need to bring it up. Trump's the president.
Yes, but
the problem isn't what the people are doing. Right now, they elected Trump. They elected Trump to solve these problems. And the people who are stomping on the rights of individuals could be stopped by the president right now.
They can also be stopped by us.
That's a whole other conversation.
I don't want that to happen, but it just seems like that would be right now, this point in time, there seems to be nothing happening from the federal government or from Trump. And that, it could be up to us.
They're destroying economics. They're not stealing people's children at night. If the cops were coming in and taking people's kids in the middle of the night, you'd probably see people enforcing their Second Amendment.
I don't think so.
You don't?
The James Younger case.
We're supposed to.
The problem
James Younger case. A man's son has been essentially taken from him, and the courts ruled that the child will undergo gender reassignment therapy. Yep. If a father wouldn't rise up in defiance of the government after his son was taken in that way, then I really don't see the political.
It's that slow heating up of the frogs
Republicans
in the pot.
we're way more peaceful than the left. If we were as violent as the left, none of this would be happening.
That's the scary thing.
Yeah, and the lockdown protests against Whitmer from months ago. We had tens of thousands of Americans show up peacefully with guns, and what happened? She extended the lockdowns.
And that's it. And people just went home.
That was it. Then they went home. It's like, because Republicans, we want to do everything legally in the court.
Because Republicans want to be left alone.
Yeah, we just want to be left alone.
Yep. I appeal to the president. Donald, please enforce.
You think he should invoke the Insurrection Act?
I think you should protect our economy at all costs from these
Especially
psychotic
at the rate things are going right now. If you're not going to win the election, what do you got to lose?
It's kind of crazy that it's a slow boil. We're frogs in a pot. The economy is destroyed. These leftists have no idea how debt to GDP works, how money printing works, how modern monetary policy works, anything like this. And they advocate for things that make no sense, like deficit spending to pay for healthcare. It's like all you're doing is stripping away the savings of people. It makes it so that nobody should save anything ever. But then, of course, they use that and say, well, you have no savings. We should have government, mandated spending, and buying of the resources you need. With these Democrat states destroying the economy, we get this $600 COVID package. That $900 billion deal attached to a total of $2.3 billion omnibus spending for ridiculous things like Pakistani gender studies shows you the system is corrupt and Trump isn't fixing it. That's it. Trump apparently submitted a budget request that was similar to the omnibus, so people are mentioning in the super chat, whether it's true or not. What does Trump come out and do? What does Trump come out and do? He says triple it. Yeah. Trump didn't say reopen the economy now. I will not sign this relief bill until there's a mandate for the states to reopen their economies and protect small businesses.
Throw more money at it.
Exactly. And he said triple it. And Democrats, what they said? They said,
great
much
idea.
obliged.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Trump.
It's kind of being a Republican in one way is kind of a double-edged sword versus being a Democrat. And the Democrats' worldview of fixing it, they can just come in and, like what the dictators are doing, these governors, I want this done. Here's an order. Blink, it's done. Even though it's unconstitutional, it's tyrannical, it's illegal. With Republicans, on the other hand, if they want to fix something, we don't act like, for the most part, we don't act like dictators to get something done and fix it. We would have to go this process, that process, and this pushback and that. Then you got to play the game and do all this. Whereas if it was a Democrat, here's a bill, sign it, tyrannical, done.
Right. Legislating what you want. I think about that with gun control. Like, just saying it's illegal all of a sudden while people are at home printing their guns. Like, you can't enforce that law. You look like a mockery.
Donald Trump vetoed the NDAA. In it is an amendment that would take away his ability to it would curtail his ability to invoke the Insurrection Act. He would require the Secretary of Defense and himself to sign off and provide reasonable certification to Congress to approve. Otherwise, he would not be able to invoke the Insurrection Act. So think about it this way. One of the provisions of the Insurrection Act is to enforce the constitutional rights of the citizens of the state. New York is in violation of that numerous times, blocking people from going to churches and things, and things of that nature. Los Angeles is shutting off people's water and electricity for exercising their First Amendment right. Mitch McConnell on the 29th is going to convene the Senate to override Trump's veto. When that happens, Trump will lose the ability to invoke the Insurrection Act. If Trump would do it, he has 5 more days. That's it. 4 more days probably to do it before they override his veto.
Who do you have to send in? The National Guard? Is that
military or National Guard? Federalized National Guard or the military?
I worry that if this sets a precedent and that gets done, and what if Biden comes in and wants to ban guns nationwide?
No, the Second Amendment, that would be in defiance of the Constitution.
But so, I mean, what we're seeing is these police officers don't care. They're doing it. But with the military, I think it's a little bit
I don't think would. Well, we'll see.
I never thought I would see law enforcement arrest people for not wearing them.
I never did. Never.
You see, I've had experience with it, so
not here. That's what they used to say. It'll never happen here.
Makes us think the military is not going to go door to door.
Listen.
Nervous.
They will.
Right before lockdown started, I did an interview with an NYPD officer, and I was telling him about the whole lockdowns. I'm like, I was saying, there's no way in hell that this will ever be enforced. And this was before all this happened. And he said to me, you'll be surprised.
That was
I did not believe him. I refused to believe him.
Dude,
and then a month later,
I've been to enough countries. I've been to enough protests, and I've seen enough action from police to know that many of these people just don't care. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think all cops are bad. The left uses a worse word than that, and 1312 or whatever, ACAB. I think there are a lot of bad cops, and I think we need police reform.
Yep.
And I think there are a lot of good cops. And they tend to be smaller cities. They tend to be more rural. And they tend to be conservative.
And they know
it's the big city cops who will, beat you over the head and say, I don't care.
You're right. We need to fund them, the people that are violating the orders. Mm-hmm. Because if they lose their job, that's it, for them. But if we have a charity that's making sure they're going to get paid regardless, then there's incentive to do the right thing.
You should start it, Tim.
I don't know about that.
Hire someone to start it.
People get mad at me because they think I'm going to be some leader.
I'll start it, and then I'll pay you to promote it as a sponsorship.
People like Trump supporters are mad, saying like everyone's got to be on the front lines of this fight and going out, showing up in DC on the 6th. And I might go to DC. I don't know if I'm
people
gonna.
got tired of all these lockdown protests now. This was like
the 6th isn't a lockdown protest. The 6th is the overturning the election for Trump protest. Okay. So they're saying everyone has to go there, and I'm like, bro, I'm not a leader. I'm not a part of your tribe. I'm a dude who complains on the internet, and I will always be that. Yeah. And I'm not going to rally or rabble or tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I'll tell you what I think, what I want to happen, and you do your thing. You make your own opinions.
His drone war and escalation and his lack of leadership on Assange has really kind of soured me to Donald.
What's his lack of leadership on Assange?
He's just not doing anything about it. He keeps saying like, I'm considering. That was like last week, and now this week he's announced he's considering it again.
He instructed the Ecuadorian embassy, the raid on the Ecuadorian embassy. That's leadership. Not what we want though.
Okay, not the right leadership.
Right. So he certainly made a decision, pull Assange out of the embassy, and now we've yet to see him pardon Assange.
Talking about pardoning the guy, like Daniel Ellsberg. He revealed the war atrocities.
Julian Assange didn't commit any crime. He's just being effectively detained for a decade, nearly. It's like 8 years now. And now he's facing charges because they just don't like that he's effective. He exposed the intelligence agencies and some of the messed up stuff the U.S. was doing, and it really helped Trump. It showed a lot of Trump supporters exactly what they were doing and why, a lot of these arguments against them, against like deep state, people were correct. And for a long time, like a good example is Sarah Palin. She spoke out against WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks published her emails. Sarah Palin just came out defending Assange because what we got out of WikiLeaks was good. And then you realize you're going to get, with WikiLeaks, you're going to get stuff that probably you don't want leaked. And you're going to get stuff that you're probably grateful was leaked. We learn these things from people like Assange. But Assange isn't even the leaker or the whistleblower. He's the publisher. He's the journalist. And they're doing this to him. Trump needs to pardon that guy ASAP. The concern is if Trump pardons him right now, the UK will find an excuse to keep him. And that Trump, his best bet would be to get Assange to the US before pardoning him.
How?
Don't think it's possible.
Like a secret raid to get him out of there?
He already did that.
What did he
They raided the Ecuadorian embassy and arrested Assange, and now the British authorities have him.
But I mean, a raid on the British authorities.
Well, that's not going to happen.
And that'd be crazy.
No, they're trying to extradite him, but he has the legal right to block the extradition. And they don't trust the U.S. government, so they're not going to allow it. So I think Trump should just pardon him. I don't think there's any point in waiting. And if Assange wants to stay in the UK and doesn't want to come here, then just pardon him and be done with it. Whatever. Now, how do we deal with the fact that people have their rights completely stomped on in a bunch of these states? I don't know. Because do we just sit back as the water slowly boils and we sit in? And we know for a fact, because of Supreme Court rulings in like several states already, they are actively violating constitutional rights of these people? Or do we say something must be done and Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act and, hypothetically go in and then enforce constitutional...
I thought he should have done it on day 2 of the riots. But it's like
Why
there's
didn't he?
the riots and then there's the shutdown. And it's like they're two different psychotic...
No, listen. The Insurrection Act has been invoked numerous times, like a couple dozen times. And the most recent was for riots, 1992 LA riots. Then you also had the Baltimore riots. Then you had the Chicago riots in 1968. These were nowhere near as crazy as what we saw.
Because of the Insurrection Act, probably.
Well, I'm sorry. Actually, the LA riots were pretty nuts. But I think nationwide riots and then 100 days in the Pacific Northwest,
Dude,
and Trump didn't do it.
There were like 5 days where they were just watching and then no one responded federally.
Why?
So then there's all these other riots started breaking out.
You know why it probably didn't really happen over the summer and that stuff? Because it's all politics at that point. It's like, what move will help him win re-election? Will letting them destroy themselves?
He doesn't have to worry about that right now.
Now he doesn't need to worry. But at the end of the day, we also don't know what's going on behind the scenes with this election stuff. Maybe he knows some stuff that we don't know, that maybe he knows I'm going to win this. That we got this, that, and the other thing. We don't know that.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.